even from whatever reaches of outer space he happens to have traveled to. Hunter saves us again because I do now have the recording going. The 20th of August is the last day of classes. I'm going to show you the schedule coming up so you can all see what we're going to be doing between now and then, or at least the last couple weeks of the semester. But, we are down to less than a month now before the end of class. For good or bad, panic or relaxation, we do need to kind of bring this home. So, just keep that in mind as we're going through. And if you do need to talk to me about anything, or if you have issues, both Professor Makis and myself are available. I think I pronounce his last name differently every time. So, a couple of cool things going on, interesting tidbits. First off, we were talking earlier about Creative Commons having their 20th anniversary. Well, they're also having a global summit. The great thing about this global summit is I would say the bad thing about this global summit is that it is virtual, but it does mean that we don't have to travel to attend it, which means that it's available to all of us. It is in September 20th to the 24th. The really cool thing about it, the thing that I like, is if you're going to offer a virtual conference, you should try to keep the cost to attend the conference as low as possible, and they have a pay-what-you-can model. So if you want to go in and sign up, and you think maybe I'm going to get a chance to see 3 or 4 sessions or something like that, you don't have to actually give anything. Quite honestly, as students, I would suggest that pay what you can means that if you are a student, you should plan on going for free. I might consider doing a donation just because I donate to them anyway. But think about it. It's the 20th through 24th of September. You can register now, get it on your calendar, no cost. Unfortunately, you'll have to do it from your dorm room, but you can buy some little swag and give it out to yourself as you attend sessions and things. And then it's just like the real conference experience without having to shake hands. Anyway, this looks like an interesting conference. I'm probably going to sign up for it. What I do find, though, is that these virtual conferences are very hard to pay attention to. Going to an 8-hour conference all day long where people are talking at you from your screen is not nearly as engaging as meeting with a group of people after a session and exchanging ideas and talking a little bit and getting a cup of coffee. But it is the best we can do so far, and it is the right price. Whatever you define the right price as being. We've been talking a lot about contributions, and I hope that I've stressed that we want all sorts of open source contributions that you make to be reported to us so we can kind of evaluate them and throw them in with the mix of what you've done for the semester. This is a unique one. I got this through the Teaching Open Source mailing list. There's basically this Project Ocean. I posted this into the Discord channel, by the way. They're looking for people to do non-code contributions. They want people to help them identify and build attribution schemas for projects, events, and organizations. And you can sign up to help out they've got some links. I have this whole thing posted into Discord, I hope. We'll see if this actually comes up. I think sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't, we will just go to Discord and opportunities. But we will see what happens here. Sometimes it wants me to log in again, but yeah, of course. Okay, I'm going to get tired of this in a minute, and then I can never figure out how to do this. All right. and they're both pointing to the same place. Okay, anyway, if you log in there, it will, oh, there we go, camera. All right, that didn't do anything. See, now I'm getting, there we go, scan QR code. There we go. Yeah, I know. We got all that stuff. You tell me every time. All right, so I have the link down here. Of course, that just opens the email for you. But I'm not going to go through any more of this. Go ahead, check it out. If you work with them, if you end up making any contributions, if you end up attending their meetings, let us know. If you just attend the meetings, I will count that as a bonus session. If you actually go in and help them with their repositories or their schemas, and remember, this is a non-code contribution, so for those of you who are kind of fighting with some of the technology, this is not a bad way just to get a couple of those small contributions in while you go ahead and make your tutorials and getting started guides and everything else. So I thought this was kind of cool. It came through the Teaching Open Source, and it seems to be a relatively reasonable, open source complex ecosystems and networks. Seems like a reasonable little humanitarian type of effort. And for analyzing and managing open source. It's not actually ocean, it's open source ecosystems for analyzing them, etc. So this would be cool. If you learn something really cool, let me know, and we will include it in the open source software class the next time I give it, probably in spring of 2022. Anyway, easy way, take a break from your hard projects, do something a little easier, a little bit more immediate feedback. There was an article on opensource.com that I found interesting as well, and you guys should be able to go to it. I hope it's not behind a paywall. If it is behind a paywall, I'll make it available to you. Just let me know. It comes up for me really well. But the interesting thing about this was a UK study, United Kingdom study, and they're looking at reasons for why people both start contributing to open source, and getting a good grade is a good reason for starting to contribute to open source, but why they continue to contribute to open source. And what they find is that the things that get people started in open source are not necessarily the things that get them to stay in open source. This is kind of the getting started stuff, reasons for doing it, and then these arrows represent people transitioning to other reasons for doing it, and the thicker, the broader the arrow, the more the correlation. So, what you see is that fun gets proportionately bigger, career gets proportionately bigger, altruism gets a little bigger, learning gets smaller. As you become familiar with projects and you've learned the technology that makes the project, you normally start contributing or keep contributing to the project for reasons other than learning the stuff you already know. This is a really interesting one in that own use goes down over time. So you start off, as they say, scratching your own itch, doing something because you need the product or you need to be able to use the project, and then over time, that kind of, you get dragged into the community, you become part of the community, and you start contributing for other reasons, reputation being one of those, right? If you become embedded in the community, you continue contributing. GSOC is Google Summer of Code, I believe, and what you can see is that a lot of people, or not a lot, it's relatively small compared to some of these other ones, but it goes down, right? That's a way to get you started, but they don't continue to support you over time. Generally, if you keep contributing, you contribute for other reasons. So anyway, this is just a really interesting little box, it's a really short read. It's a few pages. We're already done here. The other thing I found, and I think that they presented this a little bit, is this the right one? I'm sorry, this is not UK. This is all over the world. The next one's just UK. So anyway, I thought this was an interesting one. And similarly, the next one we have here is an open source report from the UK. And again, it's a really quick read. It's not a scholarly journal paper by any means. But what they're finding is something that is kind of enlightening to us. 93%, is it 93 or 97? 97% of businesses in the UK report using open source. Now, I think that 97 is probably a little high unless you actually know what open source is, so they must have had some prompt there to tell them what types of programs they're using that could be open source. But they're saying 97% are actually using open source in their businesses, and the research organization is making this bold claim that open source software has long been the seed of growth in the United Kingdom economy. That's really cool. They do a negative spin on contributions back that I thought was a little bit unwarranted. And they do break this down by programming languages, software tools, public repositories, etc. So that's kind of cool. But then they come down here and they say that 97% used, but only 65% contributed back in any way. And a minority, 49%, reported developing open source software. They're reporting that as a negative. I think that's a wicked success. That's saying almost everybody's using it and half of the people are contributing. Over half are involved. So I think that's really awesome numbers and is far higher than I expected. On our projects, if we get 1 or 2 contributions, 10% is generally considered a really good return on your efforts. If you're getting 10% of the people using your project to actually contribute back, if the project is popular, that's sustainable, right? I mean, if you have 10,000 people and you get 10%, you have 1,000 people working on it, right? If you have 100 people, you have 10 people working on it. That's not a bad number, and that's actually, depending on the project, relatively reasonable to sustain the project. So anyway, they're painting that as kind of a gloomy picture in some sense, other than the really high using it. I thought that was really awesome that we got 49% of people actually developing code and 67% contributing back. So anyway, these are some interesting reports that I found, or some reports that I found really interesting that just kind of showed up in my mailbox over the last couple of days. And I guess finally, this is just a reminder, SIGCSE, if you guys are interested, right? They have their call for boy, WebEx is really lagging today. They have their call for papers, posters, student papers, etc., going on right now. Papers have a initial due date for an abstract of August 6th. The full paper has to be submitted by the 13th, I believe. You can check those numbers. But if you're looking at doing something like a poster or entering in the student competition, those aren't due until October 8th. So you have this semester to get some stuff done. You have next semester, the first month when you're not doing anything else, to plan out what you want to do for your poster. And I am available to talk to you about any of that. 6th, 13th, and 8th. All right. So think about that. It would be good to get some RCOS, to get you guys, some RCOS students, some experience at conferences, and start letting the world know all of the great stuff you guys are doing. So I would definitely encourage this. we are rapidly coming to July 30th. So July 30th is a week from today. That's the last day to add or remove pass no credit designation. So if you have any questions, please talk to Evan, myself, one of the coordinators, one of your mentors, and we'll try to get you some answers. And again, like I mentioned earlier, August 20th, less than a month from now, is the last day of classes for the semester. So that's when we shut down. Well, that's when you shut down and I have to finish up. Professor Makis and myself have to finish up the grading, and we will call in our mentors and coordinators to help out. All right, so graphically, that's where we are. We are about 2 weeks from this wrap-up period starting, so about 2 weeks from actually starting to present your stuff. I am going to tell you that during the wrap-up period, you do have to present, but when you're not presenting, when you're not developing your presentation, you're encouraged to continue working on your projects. We don't have a deadline. Our deadline is generally as late in the semester as we can for your final commit evaluation. We are done with workshops. Bill Nye gave the last one 2 days ago, Wednesday. But there is talk. I've had a couple of mentors suggest that they might be willing to do another talk. It's open to all of you as well. So if any of you want to do a workshop, we also have things coming up like the ocean thing that I posted. Those count for workshops. All of the workshops, I think all but one of the workshops are actually posted in video form online. One of them had technical difficulties. So you can get those and you can still get credit. So there are still ways to get credit for your bonus sections, but please, do that quickly. And if you want to give a presentation, let me know. It gets harder once we start doing our regular presentations, but really it doesn't because they don't overlap days. Whew. I checked the mid-year submissions an hour ago. There were 3 of you. Okay? Now those 3 people are going to get some really good feedback. Please get your mid-year submissions in if you want us to evaluate your stuff. It's due tonight. I don't have a peer matrix set up yet, mainly because we're going to grade the submissions the same way that we graded your status updates, or we're going to review the submissions the same way from a mentor standpoint and from a coordinator and instructor standpoint. We're going to review those the same way we do the status updates. So we'll look at the same ones we normally do. But I'm going to try to set up a peer matrix where each of you will get to look at and evaluate nominally 3 of your peers. Right now, that means that every one of you would be evaluating the same 3 people, and they would get humongous feedback for their project, 62 people or something like that each. That's not optimal. If you're planning on doing it, please get it in. It should be as simple as going into your back status updates, grabbing that links section, and pasting it into a text file. That's really all we need. If you want to generate them, we gave you some ways to help you generate them. They're posted online. It's optional. It's not going to affect your grade not to do it. But at the end of the semester, I get a lot of people asking me, what is my grade going to be? And it's really hard to go in ad hoc and evaluate an individual every time they come up and ask in a 2-minute period. This is our way of giving you that feedback. So please take advantage of it. It will make you feel better. It will make me feel better. I will be less worried about you. And it will make your peers feel better because they'll be able to look at what you did and compare it to what they did and know whether they are on par or whether they need to kick it into gear a little bit more. All right, so peer review will start on Tuesday. Hopefully we will have more than 3 people to evaluate. I can make it for 3 people very easily. This is not going to take me any time right now. I would like to have something a little more complicated. I'm going to try to get to it on the weekend, but it may be Monday before I get to it. So you might be able to start Monday. Definitely you'll be able to start Tuesday. And this says, in return, you will get 3 reviews. I think that's going to depend upon how many of you actually submit. But there we go. And while we're on the topic of gradables, we do have a gradable due today as well. This is, the gradable, the status update for today is due. I think I give you till Monday to actually turn it in. If you're doing your links, include your links for this week in your status update. Do them all at once. You're done. You have a free weekend. You don't have to panic on Monday that you forgot. And maybe we'll get started earlier grading this status update as well. And, there we go. How did I do that? Or why did I do that? All right. I said I'd give you a presentation schedule. I changed my mind. What I did instead was I generated this form. I decided that no one is ever happy when I just jump in and make the schedule. So here's the presentation schedule filler out form thing. Go in, I'm going to assume that on presentation days I can get through all of this front material pretty fast, particularly since we're at the end of the semester. There's really nothing else going on except for presentations and working at that point. So go in, put your project in a block. Remember, these are group presentations, so every group is going to present in a block. Get this done as quickly as possible, and you can have one of the 4 slots I have reserved on the last day of class. We should have enough slots there for everybody, plus a few extra. I want to reserve the red areas because we always have issues, and I always have to move a few people to the end. So don't sign up in the red areas, don't sign up in the black areas, sign up in the white or slightly gray areas. Just like Anonymous Moose just signed up for Graph. We're going to try to get started at 1:50. We're going to try to run until 3 o'clock, so that's an hour and 10 minutes. I'm asking you to present for about 10 minutes. We will have time for questions, so they'll probably run a little longer than that, maybe 12 to 15 minutes. The slack is in the schedule is in there so that we can do that and still be done by 3:35, which is the official end of this period. Okay? If we run too long, we'll push some people into Friday. And we're not going to, if you're sign up for the slot from 2 to 2:10, it's likely you're going to go at 2:02 or 1:58 or something like that. We will just keep running in a sequential order as people get done. Do try to keep it tight. If you have a lot of people and you're worried about not having enough time, talk to me. We can work something out. Yeah. I'm going to publish a rubric. The rubric we'll use to evaluate your presentations. I'll publish that next week. But if you look at it right now, we have until the 9th, the week of the 9th, to actually do these. So I'm not too worried about the actual content of the presentations yet. I'm more worried about getting you guys signed up so that we know what we're doing. If you're not done by this time next week, I'm going to take your project and put it someplace. And it's likely going to be early, right? The last person to sign up is probably going to get the first slot unless there's an intrepid young volunteer who wants to sign up for it. All right. Rainbow grades. I did another pass at rainbow grades. The attendance is up to date through Tuesday, right? So if you look, this is what my rainbow grades look like. You will see I am doing abysmally bad in the course. I haven't turned in anything, but hopefully you guys have some numbers down along this column. Your attendance should be good down through 7:20. I think on 7:20 we had some issues with some people not being able to scan the QR code. I believe I have them all in correctly, and I believe they all transferred correctly from Venue to my spreadsheet. So I think everybody is correct. Please check it. Make sure that if you attended and you submitted the attendance code, that I actually got you on there. It's running pretty consistently, so I think we're okay, but just in case. We have all of the status updates graded through spring break or summer break. The 16th one is actually due. The mentors are due for their first look through it on the 27th. So I will look at it immediately afterward. This should be ready for you either on Tuesday or at the latest on next Friday. The other thing I want you to look at is, well, this mid-year commit summary has not been filled in yet, but if you look here at project proposals and team meetings, project proposals you all, I believe, have. Right? If you don't, let me know. Team meetings are still 2 people who haven't met with Professor Makis and myself. So if you have a 0 here or a blank, that means that we don't have any record of you having talked to us. We do want to talk to you just to make sure everything's going okay, so please make arrangements to talk to us as soon as possible. I'm going to recommend that Tuesday after the lecture is a really good time to do that, although we can do it whenever. I'm willing to fit it in when we have to, but that would be a really good time to get this wrapped up. So if you can't talk to us before then, just plan on staying either on the WebEx or after class a little bit on Tuesday, and we can get this all wrapped up. And give me corrections, anything from 7:23 till now that's gone wrong. I'm willing to correct up to 7:30. After that, you'll have to be nice to me. At least give me a good reason. And finally, you should all be meeting in small groups at least twice a week. This has been our constant theme for that middle part of the semester. You guys need to be meeting together and working. You should be generating contributions, and I had intended to put more exclamation points and some bolding there, but I forgot. So just pretend that this is bolded and more exclaimed. All right, any questions? Do we have anything going on? Let me see the chat. Do project. Absolutely. Jeff, that is a very good 2-word summary. All right, this should get you to venue again. Yes?
What's the
Lab percent. Okay, so some insight into Submittee. Submittee is a great program. They have categories of things that you can sum together. So if I have on a rubric item, I have a category like participation. I can say that participation has 24 components, each one of the attendances, for example, and then it will sum that into the participation. The thing is, it doesn't have all the categories you might want to have. So when I was looking at our setting up the course, I looked at what of the drop-downs was closest to our status updates. And to me, the status update looked a lot like a lab report, or at least a little like a lab report. So I put those into the lab drop-down. Now I will say that Submittee is very flexible, and they will add things to you, for you. So I should probably get a status update put in there and start doing this under the status update category. But back when we first started doing this, I didn't realize that. And I put it in lab, and it's a big file, and I keep forgetting to make the change. So the lab percentage is your combined score for all of your status updates, right? So we've had 4 status updates, 3 of them have been graded, the 5th one goes in today. We're gonna drop 3. Submittee does not drop things as they come in, it drops them once you have enough to fulfill it. So with 8 status updates, it won't drop any of them until you have 5 successfully submitted. So if you have a low score in your lab grade, and you've only missed 1 status update, absolutely nothing to worry about. You can miss 2 more and still get full credit. All right? Thank you. That was one of the things I actually meant to go through that I forgot to go through because somebody asked me last time. So participation, let's see. Participation percent is your attendance and bonus sessions, right? You can see your bonus sessions down at the bottom there. Okay. Lab is your status update. Exercise percent, that will never be above 0, but I do have some things in there that I call exercises that allow me to, in fact, I think project proposals and team meetings are marked in there as exercises because they are not graded, but I want to give you feedback, so they have to fall into a category. The category has a 0 weight, however. Your project is the sum of your presentation and your open source contributions, or no, is that? Yeah. And I think that's it. I I'm not sure about assignment. I have to take a look at that. If you have any questions, let me know. Basically, as of right now, you should have things in lab and participation and nowhere else. All right? Actually, I think assignment is the presentation, and project is your open source contributions. But I can check that. All right, any other questions? Excellent question. I should put that someplace. Maybe it might be on the rubric, but that's no excuse for me not doing it. Before I bring up the venue code, I just want to point out that we have an ever-growing number of retired slides in the bottom. The reason those are there is if you can't remember a specific about a topic and you don't remember what week we covered it in, I keep most of the slides around underneath. It's not part of the presentation, but you should be able to go to any generic presentation late in the semester and get most of the information that we covered in the early semester, at least as far as how the courses work or what a status update looks like or what an open source contribution is, etc. So that's what that ever-growing tail is for, is to make it easy for you to find stuff, our intended interesting bits, stuff like that. That's to make it easy for you to find stuff. So anyway, there's our attendance. Let's pull up where is venue? Oh, there it is. Venue went to sleep. All right, we are 16, and I apologize last week for only giving you a few seconds to view the movie. I will make sure that I get the number right this next week. I fixed that, by the way, but just later than I wanted. All right, so there is the one off to the side here is the one off to the side is to get you to venue, and then the big one in the middle should be the code you need to validate yourself for today. Okay. Quick show of hands or yes or no in the chat. How many of you think that we can get through all of this during presentation week by 250 or by 150 so that we can get started on time? Or how many of you, raise your hand, how many think we can get through all this front matter in time to get started on time? Alice is shaking her head. No one is raising. We have one person raising their hand. Thank you for the vote of confidence. We will do this if we can. All right. Any questions? I think the only other thing I wanted to say is I probably have to leave office hours at about 3 o'clock today. So if you have something you need to talk to me about, earlier is better than later. I do have to talk to Walla Walla CodeNet if you guys are available, and then anybody around, I'm happy to talk to you online or offline, but I'm going to head up to my office about 3. All right? And by the way, if you do need to talk to me, you can stop by my office as well. All right, I'm going to stop the recording now. I think we should have another little block there at the end. Hunter should